I'm gonna let you use your imagination, figure out what you think documentary called Money Shot is about.
Bing bong.
So I wanted to give this documentary a chance because I think that this industry is very interesting just in how controversial it can be and all the different opinions about the work that's done within this industry. A lot of my complaints about this documentary are not necessarily about the documentary at all in terms of the subject that it's talking about. It's more just about why does it exist? Here's the thing. If you even remotely paid attention to what was going on with this company, let's just call them the Hub. If you at all paid attention to what was happening with the Hub a couple of years ago, then I don't really know why you would need to watch this documentary. In fact, I would say that I'm not really sure if anyone who didn't hear about this situation would even be interested in this documentary existing. I'm not even sure that that's like a Venn diagram that actually exists because it feels like there's a good chance you already heard about what happened and you already sort of heard the conclusion ish, sort of how things kind of wrapped up. If that's the case, then I'm not really entirely sure that this documentary is really going to add much to the story about what went on a few years ago. Now, I do think from a production standpoint, this documentary about the Hub is presented really well. It looks really good. It's edited really well. All the interviews are done very, very well. But one of my complaints was that it just sort of felt kind of rushed. It sort of felt as if there were way more people, way more parties involved that you could have interviewed and didn't. And I think one of the questions I have is that sometimes in documentaries, if there is sort of a glaring interview or person or type of interview that they wanted to do and they couldn't get it done, they'll let you know in the documentary, like, hey, we tried. We tried to get this person. We tried to get more of these types of people to be in it. They didn't want to. That's not really what happened here. So you're sort of just left wondering, like, why were there seemingly so few people interviewed about a website that produces so much content? I mean, one of the most heavily trafficked websites in the world. So in that sense, it feels like either the people working on this documentary, there just were not enough of them out there to do interviews or reach out to people or try to get them to be in this documentary, or this documentary should have just been broken up into episodes, into 4 or 5 or 6 episode miniseries where maybe that would have given them more time to produce it. So it's a bit of a bummer because aside from presenting to you exactly what happened during this entire ordeal couple of years ago with the Hub and them getting in trouble for certain content that was being posted on the site that definitely should not have been there from the beginning, and at the very least should have had mods removing it instantly, trying to figure out who posted it, charging them, all that stuff. It includes all that, and it doesn't really include that much new information. Certainly nothing that seems like it's worth watching the entire 90-minute documentary, which sort of starts to drag because they're kind of going back to the same people over and over, and you're a lot of the times getting a lot of the same information from a lot of these people, and there aren't that many. And I think I just wanted more points of view. I wanted more people involved. I think it felt like the scope of this project could have been bigger, and there's part of me that thinks like they felt as if the subject and the company involved was more than enough in terms of marketing and getting people to watch. And I think that while that's probably not untrue, it wouldn't have hurt to get more people involved in this project. And if you couldn't get them, to let us know, hey, we tried, here's what we wanted to do. We had a lot of different hurdles that we attempted to clear, and some of them we couldn't. And I would have been fine with that. I'm like, hey, I get it. I'm sure a lot of work went into this. And I'm sure a lot of work went into the final version of this documentary. But I think there are certain aspects that feel like they sped through. It could have been a full episode or something, and certain aspects that have felt like they maybe could have combined with other parts of this story. I think also when you get to the end here, you're sort of left wondering like, okay, thanks for the summary, I guess. Sometimes when a documentary ends, it leaves you thinking, you know, here's what's next, here's maybe where this is headed. And you don't really get that here. It just sort of ends and then it's over. The Hub, the machine, just keeps on moving. I don't really know what the purpose of this documentary was. I think that, you know, there's value in documentaries not always picking a side or sometimes just presenting information. But in this instance, it felt like there were so many factors at play that it would have been nice for each of them to get highlighted maybe a little bit more and just felt a little more focused than this actually did. Probably still worth checking out if this sort of subject just interests you, fascinates you, you think the industry is interesting, or you're just curious because maybe it's a little bit taboo. I think if you know a lot about this story, then watching this documentary, you're kind of going to come out of it the same way you went in. You sort of already know everything that happened. If you want to give it a shot, be my guest, but I can't say that it's really all that interesting in terms of seeing a lot of information you probably already know being repeated again.